It is often said of footballers, particularly those representing the major footballing nations, that they fail to replicate their club form on the international stage. England have been an excellent example of this over the years, whether it be John Barnes, Paul Scholes, or, well, pretty much the entirety of the so-called Golden Generation team in truth, with only the likes of Ashley Cole, Michael Owen and Peter Crouch really bucking that trend. Whether it's playing in a different system or the increased pressure that comes with pulling on the national team shirt, some players just seem to shrink when representing their countries. As with anything in football though, there are some exceptions that prove the rule. Players like Andrei Yarmolenko, who despite a disrupted 3 years at West Ham, where he has only scored 10 goals, continues to be Ukraine's talisman, and was excellent yet again at Euro 2020. Or Alexander Mitrovic, a man who has scored goals prolifically in English football's second tier, but has struggled in the Premier League. He has scored 41 goals from just 62 caps for Serbia, including 5 in 3 in 2021. Or how about Guillermo Ochoa, perennially outstanding for Mexico, but often indifferent at club level. Those are all just some examples that missed out, along with a handful of others, which gives you some idea of what a strong 7 we've got ahead of us. Just out of personal indulgence, I wanted to point out that the third YouTube video that I ever made, 4 years ago this month, was entitled 7 Footballers Who Play Better for Their National Teams. However, that was an all-time 7. I have received lots of requests for a current version, and I suspect not too many of you were subscribed to the channel in July 2017 regardless, given that at the time I think I had about 300 subscribers. Nonetheless, I mention that as a quick interlude, just to say a big thank you to all of you who subscribed to the channel and have watched any of my videos during those 4 years. I can't believe it's been quite that long, but there you have it, and I greatly appreciate it. Right, nostalgia and gratitude thankfully over and done with, here are 7 footballers who play better at international level than they do at club level. Danny Ward. A superb starting point, in my humble opinion. The only argument against Danny Ward making this 7 is that he doesn't play at all at club level, so how could he possibly play better or worse at international level? It's like comparing something to an infinite vacuum of nothingness. I decided to put not playing at all in the same bracket as not playing particularly well, however, on the grounds that if your club rated you highly enough, presumably they would start you. The stumbling block for Danny Ward has long been the presence of Danish number 1 Kasper Schmeichel, who has also been Leicester City's number 1, ever since Ward joined the club for a fairly substantial £12.5 million fee in 2018, after Alisson's arrival at Liverpool relegated him to being Jurgen Klopp's 4th choice goalkeeper. £12.5 million is some price to pay for a 4th choice goalkeeper, but Ward has proved at international level with Wales why he was able to command such a large fee. Capped 17 times by Wales, Ward usurped Wayne Hennessy in the Dragons' pecking order at Euro 2020, where he put in some superb performances. With firm wrists and some impressive acrobatics, Ward has hardly put a foot wrong on the international stage, despite having 4 goals put past him for Wales against Denmark. He is now being tipped to join Wolves, and on the basis of what we have seen from him with Wales, Ward is far too good to be playing second fiddle anymore. Paul Pogba. I had to give this one some careful consideration, but I'm not sure why, to be totally honest with you. Whilst the quality of Pogba's performances at Manchester United have long been disputed, the fact that he plays better for France than he does for the Red Devils would surely only be contested by a madman. Make no mistake, Paul Pogba is one of the most talented footballers in the world. He is 6'3" tall, yet he has the feet of a diminutive number 10. He can sit players down with a trick or a feint, as well as breezing past them with those long legs. His vision and weight of pass are both among the best in the business, and when he gets into the 6-yard box, Pogba can be a real menace in the air. All of the attributes that I've just described are frequently on show when Pogba pulls on a France shirt, including at the most recent Euros, despite France's early exit. The same cannot be said for the 28-year-old's time at Manchester United. People will forever blame systems and personnel, as well as pointing out the fact that Pogba often actually played very well for Manchester United. However, he was never the true talisman that team needed. Truly great players are able to adapt, play in different roles, and forge out some form of consistency. It looks as though Paul Pogba may join PSG this summer, where I have no doubt he will be superb, and an absolute joy to watch. None of that changes the fact that Paul Pogba is a very worthy inclusion within this seven. Marcelo Moreno. A bit of a journeyman these days, Marcelo Moreno has played football in 5 different countries across 3 different continents. Wigan Athletic fans may be able to recall Moreno from his time at the DW Stadium in 2010, back when Wigan were in the Premier League, and Moreno spent 6 months on loan at the club. Moreno made just 12 appearances for the Latics, failing to find the back of the net on a single occasion. For the last 9 years, Moreno has played exclusively in China and Brazil, flip-flopping between the two roughly every few years. Over the last 4 years, Moreno has scored 14 goals in 56 games at club level, and 11 goals from just 17 games at international level. That is a record of 0.25 goals per game at club level compared to 0.65 goals per game at international level. The last time Moreno hit 20 plus goals at club level was in 2017, when he did so for Wuhan in the China League 1, the division below the Chinese Super League. During that same period, Moreno became Bolivia's all-time record goalscorer, and now aged 34, he remains their captain and star man, and he isn't even the oldest player within their attack. Since returning to Cruzeiro in 2020, Moreno has only managed 4 goals in 38 games, and given his attacking output for Bolivia has continued to be so impressive, he had to feature. Granit Xhaka. Normally in football, we establish an opinion on a player the first few times that we watch them, and then everything that happens subsequently to that just sort of reaffirms our pre-existing biases. It tends to take a pretty dramatic change of some kind, or a wider narrative shift that prompts people to change their minds. However, in the case of Granit Xhaka, from my own personal experience at least, I find it really difficult to nail him down. Perhaps that's because a lot of his best work goes unnoticed, whereas his mistakes are often much more apparent, as an Arsenal friend of mine put it. Or perhaps that's just because he isn't all that consistent. There are times in which I watch Xhaka and question what he is actually good at. He can look a bit lethargic, his tackling can be rash, and his passing rather wayward. And then there are other times in which I watch Xhaka, such as his performance against France at the Euros, where you wonder whether there is anything that he can't do. Xhaka's passing in that game wasn't just accurate and perfectly weighted, it was progressive and incisive, constantly dragging Switzerland further up the pitch and looking to penetrate France's rearguard. I will forgive you if you laughed at the words penetrate and rear appearing so close together there. Anyhow, whilst I'm still yet to nail Xhaka down, if there's one thing I am sure of, it is that he tends to put in his most impressive performances for Switzerland, rather than for Arsenal. It was following his fine form at Euro 2016 that Arsenal fans got quite excited about signing Xhaka that same summer, after the club just missed out on N'Golo Kante. But Xhaka would ultimately go down as one of Arsenal's many erratic performers throughout a disappointing era for the club. And a departure, seemingly for Roma at the time of this recording, seems to make sense for both parties. Jordan Pickford. It is vitally important to make one thing absolutely clear when talking about Jordan Pickford, particularly in the context of a video like this, and that is the fact that he has actually been very good for Everton for a little while now. Right at the start of last season, you will recall, Pickford put in a rash challenge on Virgil van Dijk, which completely tore the ligament in the Dutchman's knee and sidelined him for the rest of the season. At that point, Pickford was taking an awful lot of flack, whether that be people saying that he should be banned for however long, that he was too emotional, or that he was so error-prone that Everton had to replace him. Indeed, when Carlo Ancelotti brought Robin Olsen on loan to the club from Roma, there were some who suspected that Pickford's days at Everton might be numbered, and Olsen did make 11 appearances that season. It is certainly true that Pickford, throughout his time at Goodison Park, has made too many errors, and often very high-profile or costly ones. However, From January onwards last season, Pickford didn't just avoid making many mistakes, he was routinely very impressive, and his reflexes and acrobatics have never really been in doubt. Having said all of that, even compared to his best run of form since signing for Everton, Pickford's performances when he pulls on an England shirt seem to be elevated to another level. I can't remember him making a single high-profile error during his 38 caps for England, or not a really nightmarish one at least. And at both of the major tournaments he has appeared at, Pickford has been outstanding. He kept the most clean sheets and made almost twice as many saves as Player of the Tournament award winner Gianluigi Donnarumma at Euro 2020. Pickford has also won 2 out of his 3 shootouts as England's number 1, and in the one that he lost, he saved as many penalties as Donnarumma in the shootout against Italy in the Euro 2020 final. Eduardo Vargas. We head back to South America for our runner-up, and indeed, back to the Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A. In fact, our runner-up takes us to the current Brasileiro runners-up as well, at least at the time of this recording, and that is Atletico Mineiro, who currently trail only Palmeiras in the league table of Brazil's top flight. As with our other South American, MARCELO Moreno, Vargas has also had a brief stint in the Premier League, and he also plays in Brazil despite not being Brazilian. Vargas was born in Santiago, the capital of Chile, and he has scored 40 goals from 100 caps for the 2-time Copa America champions. That tally makes Vargas Chile's second highest goal scorer of all time, just one spot behind Alexis Sanchez, who has an inferior goals per game record, and it isn't inconceivable that Vargas could one day overtake him. Whilst Alexis Sanchez has played for some of the biggest clubs in Europe, and has been, at times at least, one of the best players in some of Europe's top leagues, the same cannot be said for Vargas. He didn't score a single goal in 19 league games for Napoli, he managed just 2 in 29 at Hoffenheim, and he wasn't much more prolific at either Valencia or Queen's Park Rangers. He was able to find the back of the net a bit more frequently in Liga MX with Tigres, though still not quite as often as he does for Chile. And he has bagged 7 goals in 31 games since signing for Atletico Mineiro in 2020. Vargas isn't just superior at international compared to club level right now, he has been virtually all his career, and he'd come close to making an all-time 7 were I to remake one now. Xherdan Shaqiri. Well, we started with a player who has barely kicked a ball in recent years at club level, and we end with one who hasn't played a great deal either. Our second Swiss inclusion, the contrast between Xherdan Shaqiri's club and international fortunes is enormous. The rhythm of Shaqiri's club career has been pretty consistent, unlike his performances. Outstanding for non-elite level clubs, while struggling a bit for those elite level teams. Following 3 seasons in which he lit up the Bet365 stadium, Shaqiri left Stoke City in 2018, following the club's Premier League relegation, in a move to Liverpool. It always seemed likely that Shaqiri would play second fiddle to Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane on the 2 flanks, but across an entire season, with Liverpool battling on multiple fronts, that still ought to have resulted in plenty of first-team football. Well, it hasn't. Shaqiri has made just 63 appearances, most of which have come off the bench, and only a handful of his starts have come in the Premier League. Last season, Shaqiri didn't score a single Premier League goal across his 14 appearances, and he only managed 1 in 23 in all competitions. Contrast that with his performances at this summer's Euros, where he started every game for Switzerland, scoring 3 goals, including 1 against Spain in the quarter-finals. Those 3 goals mean that Shaqiri has now scored more goals at major international tournaments than the likes of Wayne Rooney, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Raul, and Marco van Basten, and the same number as Ruud van Nistelrooy. All things considered, I think he has to take top spot. So that is it for today's video, but thank you all very much as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on by just hitting the little notifications bell icon for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Twitter or on Instagram, or both, via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.